All right, all right, all right. Welcome back. That's really good. Been getting into tea. So many different flavors. In coffee, for me, it's more just kind of quality of the bean, the Arabica bean. Um, I'm not into the syrups and all that one pump, two pump stuff. Just coffee, some good 2% or even less in quantity, whole milk, man, it just adds that little creaminess, caramel, uh, to a degree, really accentuates the flavor of the coffee itself, just the natural roasted bean. Mm. There are some mornings I love my cup of coffee. I literally, I make it the night before, and so it's all roasted, um, ready for me when I wake up. And there are just some mornings, oh god, you want that first warm sip. Um, if you have just kind of the inkling of a sore throat or a little dry throat, man, it's that warmth, especially as we move into Southern California winter, which just means gets about 40 in the morning and warms up to about 65, 70 during the day. Although we're having a really interesting windstorm right now. Santa Ana's, so they're coming from the west, no, the east, towards the west, so towards the ocean. Usually it's the other way around. Um, but all the trees are just like, wait, like now we're blowing this way? Okay. Um, so anyway, having a delicious cup of hot coffee in the morning is just it's one of those things that from time to time, man, I look forward to. It's good. But side note to that is been getting into teas, and they are delicious. Um, I mean, you have all the spices and herbs that they're combining. And this one, it's a arnica, and I guess it's really good for swelling. Ooh, and man, I don't know. I feel great today. I've been out of surgery for what is today even? I don't know, about 2 weeks, let's say. And scars are healing, moving around and moving things, even though I'm not supposed to. Just kind of like forgetting, that I have these 6 incisions in me. Um, so I'm feeling great, but past couple of days have been really nursing this arnica tea. It's got other herbs and flowers and things in it. It's delicious. A little spicy, a little sweet. I like adding a little bit of honey in there. Very woodsy bark. Um, I don't know, I'm digging it. And I think my body's like, "Yo, I like this stuff." I mean, it's good medicine, like literally, mentally, physically. Um, Tea has some great medicinal qualities that I've really been taking care of my body with it. I believe in it. I think that's a big part of it. So I've been enjoying it. Anyway, I wanted to talk today about it's one of the first lessons that I teach my students, and it's pen, not pencil. It invariably kids, pull out their pencil, mechanical, usually. Some are old school. Dixon Ticonderogas, number two, HB, best ones on the block ever. And they want to take notes with it. I emphasize notes in class. Helps helps for a number of reasons. One, it keeps the students active, instead of just kind of this kind of dynamic where like I got stuff to share, man. I got stuff to say. I want to give you some insights, some tips, some pro tips, life hacks on life, on writing, on whatever we're doing, right? And so I'm just spouting off and I quickly like stop. I'm like, "What are y'all doing?" Like you're just sitting there, like kind of looking at me, but that's awkward. Like get active, right? Start taking some notes. And what are you taking notes on? You're taking notes on the what and the so what. It's a whole nother lesson. That's a big one. Um, and we'll get to that. But you're taking notes on some of the elements, some of the things that so the what's that I'm talking about. Therefore, I think they're important. I think they're relevant. I think they're going to be useful. Um, strike think for pretty much no. I'm pretty much for sure guaranteeing you that like that's my promise that if I say I'm going to help you become a better writer, these are some of the things you need to do to and incorporate in order to become a better writer, right? Skills, um, certain components of style, structure, etc. So there's a lot of what's. Jot those down, right? And then there's a lot of so what's, and that's the part that in your mind while you're listening, you're thinking. You're what does that mean? What does he mean by that? You mean like, for example, well, does that also imply? And seems like if I do this, then some of these things are going to be consequences. It's that level of thinking, right? That I also want you to put in your notes. It just makes sense to do that. And big picture, what I always remind my kids is taking notes is it's for later, right? It's to study for the exam. It's to conjure up some ideas when you have to do a writer response, reader response to something that we read, essays, etc. Like I talk about a lot of the micro and the macro of any one component. So if we're reading an essay, it's not just level one, what's it about? But then, how is it built and with what intent, for what purpose, right? And that leads us into the message, the theme, right? By the end of this, what's it trying to teach you? What's the lesson that we can learn from the experience that was described in this essay, this narrative, whatever? And so I talk about a lot of that, and it's not just write it down so that you can regurgitate it. I, I despise those kind of teachers. It was so box. It was so box mentality, just so close-minded, so egocentric. Like Jesus. Okay, so you're the gatekeeper of all things related to knowledge, and there are just some professors and teachers like that, right? Yes, basically that is how they feel about themselves, about their subject matter. So just spit back whatever they threw out at you, and lo and behold, you get a great grade. It's not how I work. Um, but I explained to the kids, these notes are for later, and it's when I'm not around, and that's the tricky part, because you can raise your hand, you can ask me, wait, what do you mean by that? So if you're not getting that extra conversation down, then when you refer back to your notes, they're not talking to you. They were just, like some, mosaic created by a madman, um, that has no rhyme, no reason, no beginning, no end, no cohesion, right? They're not cogent, clear, um, logical, and persuasive. So I love that word, 3 for 1, please, cogent. So I like to tell my kids, think of your notes as a conversation that you're going to have later. And so talk to yourself. If you're wondering something, put that down. Start your own little kind of key of abbreviations, question mark, something I'm thinking about, but hopefully I'll be able to answer later. I do 1B with a arrow, meaning becomes. If it's two lines into an arrow, Under the B, it become or between, and by context, I understand what I'm saying. Stars, exclamation marks, big point, something important. So you create your own system, basically, of shorthand, and examples are clutch in taking good notes because sometimes we don't understand the concept, like the formula, until, oh, okay, so that's what you're talking about. Like until we can see it. I used to make models, um, and you get a box. It's about so big, and on the cover is the final product. And if it's a battleship, they've got it in the ocean, and if it's an airplane, you've got clouds in the background. And I love that, and I loved gluing everything together. Um, and then you get the tester's paint, right? And you paint it, and it was you just lose time, you lose self. I guess it's a hobby. I don't know. It was a lot of fun. So I loved cars, ships, airplanes, um, and oftentimes I would have. It was like you would get these like how do you call it? It's just like a plate, a plastic plate, and then it was like, these branches, and you would twist off from the branch the tiny little pieces, right? They were just kinda connected with a thinner little piece of plastic, so you could either snip it or you just twist it off and then file it down. Um, and these kind of plates of a thicker plastic, that held all the pieces together, invariably, when I'd build these models, I'd have a few pieces left over. I'm like, it looks fine to me. Like, I don't know where it goes. And it's because I usually didn't read the instructions. I just looked at the box and would be like, oh, okay, so that's the window. So that's going to go on that side. Oh, that goes in the front. And I think that's kind of like good note taking, right? Seeing the box picture is like having those examples. So you get the big picture, you get where was the professor going with this idea? How do we get there? How does this work? What eventually is it supposed to look like? And it, that's a conversation. So good notes um, create a good conversation so that when you go back to them for reference for whatever reason, they make sense to you, and they're an actual tool to build from. So, uh, tangent for I notice the kids often at the beginning of the year, this is senior class, right? 12th graders, reaching for their pencil. And I stop everybody. I'm like, okay, we got to have that lesson. Like, which one? And I put pen and then, greater than pencil. It's more valuable, it's more important, um, more powerful. So I give them the paradox. Haven't you guys heard of the pen is mightier than the sword? And invariably, no. A, I don't know what a paradox means. And how can a pen be stronger than a sword? Like, not working for me. Well, first of all, a paradox is something that at first doesn't seem to make sense, but when you think about it, you understand the logic behind it. So let me explain the paradox of the pen is mightier than the sword. A sword has one function. It's to kill, right? It's to pull from the sheath, wave in the air, and slash and kill. Okay. The pen has one function of writing, but what it can write, what it can create is infinite almost. Case in point, somebody's angry with me and they come after me, with a sword. And this could be literally, but metaphorically, let's say. And right, they're pissed, they're angry, they're out for blood. Hold on, I write an apology letter. I write a truce. I write a compromise. I write a law. I write um, an explanation. I write a constitution. Like, I write a man-to-man apology. What I can do with the pen is because it is so, how do I wanna say this? Because the pen gives me so many more opportunities to express myself, to create something. It therefore has more value than the function of the sword, which is to kill. So I dropped the scenario in front of my kids. I always choose a kid, usually in the front row. I'm like, I'm standing up here, and boom, so and so comes in the door, and Sperling whips out his huge sword, right? Just blinding all of us because of its high polish, and the sharpness is singing as he's whipping this thing through the air, and everybody's like, "Yo, Sperling's gonna die." And I'm like, "Wait." I'm like, "Oh, plot twist." And I pull out a pen, and the kid's like, "Yeah, Sperling's gonna die." Like, bro, run. Like, no. Clearly he's pissed, right? And he is reacting in an aggressive, angry, violent way. I must have done something. Think. Oh, shoot. Yep. Yep. I crossed over the line. I broke the law. I, fill in the blank with some injury. Well, if there is a semblance, a drop of humanity and compassion in that man's mind and soul, I'm going to tap into it by writing something to him. And isn't how we write and what we write one of the most powerful ways to connect with other people, right? Love letters, letters of friendship, of gratitude, of, you know, of law, of policy, of rule, of order, and all of these against, confusion, conflict, chaos, which is more aligned to the sword. So kind of which weapon, which implement would you rather wield? Now you're like, well, if I'm at war, I want the sword. I guess if you're stuck on the battlefield, but if you had the choice, if you had the ability to script up some compromise, okay, from here over, that's your land. From here over, it's mine, right? We'll respect each other. Some explanation of what happened. It because it has so many more dimensions and possibilities to it. The pen is mightier than the sword. It is greater than. It has more potential. It has now more power, more prowess, more possibility of connecting in a way that will thwart death, blood, gore, aggression, hatred, animosity, violence. So after this long-winded explanation of how the pen is mightier than the sword, I explain that's just part of the lesson here. When we reach for a pencil, why the pencil? And you should see the bags. I mean, the tool bags, the pen bags, pencil bag, whatever you want to call them, that these kids have. I mean, some are like, like the full spectrum of all pens, all pencils, mechanical point 7.5. Like, holy Toledo, these kids come stocked. And, otherwise really cool bags. Some look like bananas and, cans of Coca-Cola, whatever. They're really creative. But open them up, they've got everything in there. It's like you've got those kids on one spectrum, you've on the other side of the spectrum, you've got the other kids like in a bag that's about this big, I mean, just billowing, like puffing out with papers and folders, things that have just been, a shoe. I'm like, where's the other? I don't know. Like things crammed in there. I got my pencil. Why do we reach usually when we have the assortment, when we have the option? Why do we reach for the pencil? Yeah. If I'm reading your mind correctly, it's so that we can erase when we make a mistake. All right. Let's take a step back now. If I'm asking you to write something, you know, we we read a story, just give me a reader's response, a reflection, how are you similar or different to the protagonist? What do you think is kind of the theme of the story? What do you think it's trying to teach you? Boom, reach for the pencil. Why the pencil? Because, well, in case I make a mistake, I can erase it. You haven't even begun writing, and already you're thinking about mistakes. Think about this. You haven't even begun putting down the first word, and already you are starting the process, because the writing process begins before your pen ever touches that paper. You've begun the process in a place of deficit, in a place of insecurity, in a place of, I'm gonna make a mistake. And so I'm gonna reach for a pencil so I can erase it, so I can like pretend it never happened. Like, what a weird way to begin anything. Imagine being an athlete. Okay, well, we're definitely gonna lose. So yeah, I don't think like what? Uh, what? Sit down. You're on the bench, dude. With that attitude? No way. So why begin in this case writing from a place of weakness, from a place of insecurity, from a place of self-doubt, from a place where I'm just going to make a mistake, but thank God I can erase it and get rid of it. Listen, we are not perfect. But when you write with a pen, you write with confidence. You write with an attitude that I've got something to say and I'm putting this down, that there is permanence in this purpose here. And yes, because we are not perfect, oops, made a mistake. You've got whiteout. Up, you could just take your same pen and scratch out that. Not there's some kids. I'm like, yo, you literally wasted half your ink on scribbling out those two words. Like, just do a line. If you really needed it out of your mind, just two lines. That's it, and keep moving forward. But with the attitude, with the confidence, not of, "Oh god, I'm gonna screw up, and, god, I don't know what to say, and I'm so insecure, and I don't even know what to think or how I think, and I'm afraid to put these words down," and yo, you cannot begin the writing process in that frame of mind. It's just gonna lead you to disaster. So, we do pen. We write in pen, not just, I think, because it looks better, but for the principles behind it. We begin the process with confidence. We begin with the confidence in ourselves that we can believe in what we have to say, and we are feeling good about putting it down. And if it doesn't come out just right, line through it and keep on going. We don't erase anything, like to pretend it never happened, to make it disappear. Y'all can do that in math. But English? No way. We begin from a place of confidence, and that is why we begin with the greatest weapon of them all, the pen. Alrighty. You take care.